I didn't even plan to be there that morning. That's the part that still twists in my gut when I replay everything. It wasn't on the calendar. I wasn't stalking her or snooping or even suspicious. Yet, I just happened to be early, and I figured I'd grab a coffee before my client call. Nothing heavy, nothing fateful, just coffee. That cafe was our usual spot once. Emma and I used to meet there on weekends, back when time felt slower and lighter. It had that warm, Portland vibe. Tiny succulents on the windowsills, records playing behind the counter, baristas who remembered your name but not your problems. I hadn't been back in months. Maybe that should have told me something too. The moment I stepped inside, I spotted her. Emma. She was sitting at one of the long wooden tables in the back. Not alone. A group surrounded her. Maybe 6 or 7 people, all in various shades of creative professional. Laptops, thick-rimmed glasses, scarves inside, the whole thing. I didn't recognize most of them, but I recognized her posture. Relaxed, comfortable, and I definitely recognized him. Nate, just a work contact. He was seated directly next to her, too close for coincidence. His knee was almost touching hers. Hers wasn't moving away. I stopped mid-step. My eyes scanned the room, pretending I was looking for a place to sit. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. But conclusions weren't jumping. They were calmly walking up to me, shaking my hand, and saying, "Nice to meet you. We've been here a while." At first, I just stood there, caught in a moment that didn't feel real. She hadn't seen me yet. She was laughing loud, open, like she didn't have a care in the world. It wasn't a fake laugh. That was the thing. It was the kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her in weeks. The kind that used to be mine. Someone at the table, some guy in a mustard beanie, started a game. "All right," he said, clinking his coffee mug like it was a wine glass. "Let's make it interesting. You have to pick one person at the table to be stranded with on a desert island. Go." Laughter followed. Playful teasing. The kind of thing people do to stir up harmless tension. And I watched as each person took a turn, making a face, pretending to think hard, flirting across the table. Then it was Emma's turn. She didn't hesitate. She leaned toward Nate. Full body leaned like muscle memory and smiled in that way. The way she used to smile at me before she learned how to ration affection. Nate raised his eyebrows, mock surprised, and then he grinned back. She looked proud of herself. I couldn't move. I didn't need to hear the punchline. That was it. That was the punchline. It wasn't a desert island, it was a table in a coffee shop. And she picked someone else. When she finally looked up, her eyes locked with mine. For a split second, she froze. Her body pulled back slightly, like she'd been caught in a dream doing something she wasn't supposed to. The smile dropped. Nate looked confused at first, then glanced over his shoulder and saw me too. His expression turned flat, unreadable. I'll give him that, he didn't flinch. The others followed her gaze, and one by one, the table went silent. I didn't say a word, didn't make a scene, didn't give them the show they might have expected from a man catching his partner wrapped in another orbit. I just nodded, more to myself than anyone else, and walked out. And that silence behind me said more than yelling ever could. She texted me before I even made it back to the car. "Hey, that wasn't what it looked like. Please don't read into it. Can we talk?" By the time I got home, she was already there, sitting on the couch with her laptop open like she hadn't just been caught mid-betrayal in daylight. "You weren't supposed to be there," she said, like that changed anything. "It wasn't serious. Just jokes. You know how the group is." I stayed standing. "You leaned into him." She blinked. "It was a game. You picked him. Without thinking. That wasn't a joke." She sighed and stood up. Brushing invisible dust off her jeans like that would clear the air. "You're overreacting. It was just the vibe of the group. Everyone was being flirty. It didn't mean anything. But you used to mean it when you leaned toward me like that." That shut her up for a second. Then came the deflection. "You've been so distant lately. I never know how you're feeling. You don't ask how my day is anymore." There it was. She turned it into a misunderstanding and painted me as too sensitive. that I read too much into things, that I don't understand the dynamic of her team. She made it sound like the entire cafe had been performing improv theater, and I'd stormed and shouting about reality. I didn't push back too hard. Not that day. I sat with it instead. And as I did, the cracks began to show. The way she moved in that cafe, that wasn't spontaneous. That was instinct, muscle memory, habit. A body doesn't lean into someone it's uncertain about. It leans toward something familiar, something rehearsed. And her eyes, when she saw me, there was no confusion, no innocence, just resignation, like she'd known this was coming, like she was waiting to be found out. That's when I realized the truth. The moment I walked into that cafe, the relationship we had was already gone. She didn't drop her hand from his lap because it wasn't there yet. But it would have been. The betrayal wasn't physical, not in that moment, but it was emotional. It was behavioral. It was written in the ease with which she placed herself next to another man like he belonged to her routine. That morning didn't break us. It revealed that we were already broken. And from that moment on, everything changed, not because she picked him in a game, but because I saw her do it like she meant it. After that morning in the cafe, things didn't explode like you'd expect. There was no dramatic fight, no yelling match, no bags thrown down the stairs. Just silence. And avoidance. That was her tactic. Pretend it hadn't happened and maybe I'd play along. And I did. For a while. Because denial is easy when the alternative is ripping your own life apart. But once you've seen something clearly, you can't unsee it. And after that moment, my vision sharpened. Things I used to brush off or excuse suddenly clicked together like puzzle pieces I hadn't realized were missing. First came the phone. Emma used to leave it face up, buzzing on the kitchen counter while she cooked, while we watched TV, while we lay in bed. Now it was always face down, locked, on silent, new passcode, one I didn't know and apparently one I was no longer trusted with. She started taking it with her everywhere, even into the bathroom, even when she was in sweatpants and clearly not expecting a call. The kind of behavior you notice but don't question at first. Not unless you want to look paranoid. But I did notice. Every time. She also stopped explaining things. Or rather, she got better at not explaining them. When she got home late, she didn't offer details. Just vague statements like, ran into someone from the team, or had to take a call outside. No names, no timelines. Her stories didn't line up with anything concrete anymore. And if I asked for clarification, she'd act like I was accusing her of something. Then there was the perfume. Emma had always worn the same one. Clean, light, a scent I used to associate with Sunday mornings and lazy kisses on the couch. But then it changed. Something bolder. Muskier. The kind of scent you wear to be remembered by someone, not to blend into a routine. She said it was a gift from a friend. Wouldn't say who. Just someone at work. When I pressed, she rolled her eyes and said I was being weird. I found unfamiliar jewelry, too. A thin silver bracelet I'd never seen before sitting on her nightstand one evening. She said it was her sister's. Her sister lives across the country, and Emma hadn't seen her in months. She also started dressing differently. That's not a crime. People evolve. Styles change. But it wasn't just different, it was intentional. She'd go run errands in outfits that looked like she was prepping for a second date. Subtle makeup, lipstick, heels. Then she'd come home with one grocery bag and no receipt. That used to be our Saturday thing, doing errands together. Now she went alone. Preferred it that way, she said. It's faster. I knew better. We stopped laughing together. That was the one I felt the most. Emma used to laugh at almost everything I said. Even the dumb stuff. Especially the dumb stuff. I loved that about her. How easy she made joy seem. But lately, when I cracked a joke, she barely responded. Like I was trying too hard. Like I was embarrassing myself. She'd give me a tight smile and go back to scrolling on her phone. And God, the phone. Her thumbs were always busy. Her screen always lit. Her face, lit by that screen, was the last thing I saw most nights. Not me. Not us. Not even the show we were pretending to watch. Just her and the glowing rectangle. As if there was something better on the other end. Someone better. Even when we sat together, we weren't together. She used to tuck her feet under my legs on the couch. We used to fold into each other like instinct. But now, a pillow always sat between us. A literal barrier. I didn't question it at first. I told myself it was comfort or posture, or that the couch was too small. But I knew. There were other signs. Small, stupid things that wouldn't make sense to anyone else, but screamed at me like sirens. She changed her Spotify password. She changed her laptop login. She started closing doors when she used to leave them open. Our shared calendar? Suddenly not so shared. She stopped adding things. Started forgetting to tell me about work events, meetups, mixers. Or maybe she didn't forget. Maybe she just didn't want me there. The thing about noticing these signs is that it doesn't hit you all at once. It's like watching water boil. You see the bubbles start to form at the bottom, you tell yourself it's nothing. But by the time it's at a full rolling boil, everything's already burning. I remember one night I asked her outright if something was going on. Not in a dramatic way, just quiet, soft. We were sitting in bed, both of us pretending to be tired. I turned to her and asked, "Are you seeing someone?" She looked up from her phone. Not startled, not nervous, just mildly annoyed and said, "Why would you even ask that?" And I didn't have a clean answer. I couldn't point to one smoking G*N, just a drawer full of small ones. But I didn't say that. I just shrugged and said, "I don't know, just a feeling." Emma didn't even try to reassure me. She just said, "You need to stop letting your imagination get the best of you." Then she rolled over and turned out the light. I lay awake for hours that night, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft, even rhythm of her breath, wondering who she dreamed about. That's when I realized I wasn't losing her. I'd already lost her. Whatever connection we had, whatever spark had lit our early days and carried us through the hard ones, had been redirected. I could feel it. It was like being in the same house with someone whose heart had already moved out. And still I stayed. Because it's easier to ignore the signs than it is to face what they're pointing to. Because denial, when layered with hope, can sound a lot like patience. Because I wasn't ready. Not to confront her. Not to lose her. Not to admit that someone else might already have her. So I waited. I told myself that maybe I was wrong. That maybe it was stress. Work. Hormones. Seasonal depression. Maybe things would go back to normal. Maybe she just needed space. But deep down, I knew. People don't protect what they value by hiding it. They don't stop laughing with the person they love. They don't keep secrets unless there's something to be ashamed of. Emma had gone somewhere emotionally, and I wasn't invited. I started keeping mental notes. Not for revenge. Not even for confrontation. Just to remind myself that I wasn't crazy. That I was seeing it clearly. That I hadn't imagined the shift. Because when someone you love begins to drift, the first thing you question is your own vision. But my vision was clear now, and all signs were pointing to the same truth. I just hadn't caught her yet, but I would. She said she had a late-night client mixer that Thursday. Said it casually, the way you mentioned picking up milk or taking out the trash. No hesitation, no details, just enough information to sound normal. I nodded like I believed her. I even wished her luck. That's the strange part. How calm I sounded while something inside me was already unraveling. I waited until the door closed behind her. 15 minutes. That's how long I gave it. Enough time for her to think she was in the clear. Enough time for me to decide I was done wondering. I grabbed my jacket, my keys, and walked out into the rain. Portland rain doesn't fall. It hangs. It lingers. It makes everything feel heavier than it is. The streets were slick and reflective as I drove downtown, every red light stretching longer than usual. My chest felt tight, but my hands were steady on the wheel. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was focused. I parked across from her office building, the one she'd pointed out proudly when she got promoted. I shut off the engine and waited. The rain tapped softly against the windshield, a slow, patient rhythm. The kind of sound you notice when you're bracing for something you don't want to see but know you will. I checked the time. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. I almost convinced myself I was wrong. Then the doors opened. Emma stepped out first, laughing, her coat unbuttoned despite the cold. She looked relaxed, like, like someone who had nothing weighing on her. And behind her, close enough to share the same stride, was Nate. They didn't touch at first. Not immediately. They walked side by side, bodies angled toward each other, matching pace without thinking. I noticed that before anything else. The way people do when they're used to walking together. He said something. She smiled. Not the polite smile she'd been giving me lately, but the real one. The one that reached her eyes. My stomach dropped. They stopped near the curb. He reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear like it was the most natural thing in the world. Not awkward. Not rushed. Familiar. She didn't flinch. She leaned into it, just slightly. Enough. That's when I knew. The kiss came next. It wasn't dramatic. No urgency. No hesitation. Just a calm, practiced motion like they'd done it before. Like this wasn't the first time or even the second. It was the kind of kiss you don't think about because you've already decided everything else. I didn't move. I didn't honk. I didn't confront them. I just watched. My hands rested in my lap, my breath shallow but controlled. I felt strangely detached, like I was watching a scene play out for someone else. When they pulled apart, she laughed again. That same laugh. Then they walked off together, disappearing into the rain. I stayed there long after they were gone. The drive home was quiet. No music. No thoughts racing. Just clarity settling in like a heavy coat. I wasn't guessing anymore. I wasn't reading signs. I had proof. And with it came something unexpected. Relief. When she came home later that night, she moved like everything was normal. Kicked off her shoes. Hung up her coat. She smelled like rain and that new perfume. She kissed my cheek and asked how my evening was. I looked at her and realized I didn't need to ask questions. I already had the answers. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Because uncertainty is exhausting. And now there was none. The morning after I saw them kiss, I didn't wake up in a rage. There was no sudden outburst, no slammed doors, no vindictive planning. I just got out of bed. The dog followed me into the kitchen, as he always did, his nails clicking across the floor. The same light filtered in through the window blinds. The same creak in the floorboard by the fridge reminded me where to step lighter. And yet, nothing felt the same. I poured coffee, made toast. I fed the dog and scratched behind his ear. Emma hadn't stirred yet. She never woke early unless she had a meeting. I checked the calendar. Nothing marked, which meant she'd sleep in. I took the quiet as permission. I walked into the bedroom, the one we shared, though lately we'd been more like polite roommates than a couple, and opened the closet. Half of it was hers. Shoes lined neatly in rows. Sweaters color-coded by season. Scarves and belts and bags, each in their own space. I started with the top shelf. Her travel bag, the one she used for work trips, was still empty. I pulled it down, placed it on the bed, and began folding her clothes one by one. Not rushed, not careless. This wasn't a purge. It was a process. Clearing. I didn't touch anything that was mine. Only hers. I wasn't trying to erase her. I was just preparing her exit. When she finally woke up, it was almost 10 a.m. I was in the living room, sealing the third box with tape. She walked in groggy, rubbing her eyes. She froze when she saw the stack of bags by the front door. First, she didn't say anything. Just looked at me, then the boxes, then back again. What? What is this? I stood up. I looked at her. Not past her, not around her, but directly at her. You're leaving. Her lips parted. What? I saw you, I said simply. Last night. With Nate. Silence. There was no gasp. No denial. No overacted horror or exaggerated confusion. Just a flicker of something across her face, recognition maybe, or defeat, maybe both. How long? I asked. My voice didn't shake. I wasn't performing. I genuinely wanted to know. She didn't answer. So I asked again. How long, Emma? Still nothing. I nodded to myself. That was my answer. The silence was louder than the truth ever could have been. She sat on the edge of the couch, her hands in her lap like a student waiting for punishment. But I wasn't angry. I was done. "I'm not going to scream," I said. "I'm not going to throw your stuff out the window or post about it online or key his car. That's not me." She nodded, slowly, but still didn't speak. "You don't have to lie," I continued. "Not anymore. I already saw it. The kiss. The way you looked at him. The way you moved. You're not sorry it happened. You're just sorry I saw it." Her jaw tightened. She wanted to argue. I could see the storm gathering in her throat. But she couldn't find a single word worth saying. "I want you out today," I said. That made her look up. "Today?" "Yes. I don't have a place lined up." I shrugged. "You've had him lined up for a while." I figured the rest of the plan wasn't far behind. That one hit her. She winced like I'd slapped her. But I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was just finished protecting her feelings while mine were being slowly buried. "I don't want to fight," she said, voice small. "Good," I replied. "Then don't." We sat in silence again. A long, brittle silence that wrapped around the room like plastic wrap. Tight, suffocating, see-through. "I never meant for this to happen," she said at last. I almost laughed. Almost. "But it did happen," I said. "And you let it." Repeatedly. "That wasn't an accident, Emma. That was a decision. Many, actually." She looked down. "I should have said something," she whispered. "You should have ended it. Or told me you wanted to. But instead, you lied. You built 2 lives and let me live in the one with missing chapters." I stood up and went to the door. "I'm going for a walk," I told her. "When I come back, I expect you to be gone. Take whatever you need. Leave the rest. Just don't still be here." Her lip trembled like she wanted to cry. But no tears came. She didn't ask me to stay. She didn't beg. She didn't even say sorry. She just nodded. And that was the most honest moment we'd had in months. The walk wasn't long. Just a few blocks. I didn't need time to think. I'd already done enough of that. I needed space. Distance. I needed to breathe air that hadn't touched her mouth. When I returned, she was gone. 3 boxes missing. Her coat. Her keys. The space in the closet where her favorite boots used to be. Empty. The dog lay curled up on the rug, head resting on his paws. When he looked at me, his ears stayed low. "She's gone," I told him. He blinked, then looked toward the door like he didn't believe me. I didn't blame him. I walked into the bedroom. Her pillow still smelled like her perfume. That new one. The one she bought after she started disappearing for errands that took too long. I stripped the bed, tossed the sheets into the wash. Not out of rage. Just necessity. Cleansing. By nightfall, the apartment was quiet. No phone buzzing. No drawers closing. No heels on tile. Just stillness. For the first time in months, I wasn't wondering where she was. I knew. And even though it hurt, even though a part of me still wanted to ask why, I also felt something else. Peace. Not the celebratory kind. Not the good riddance kind. Just the kind that comes when your mind finally stops searching for reasons. I didn't need to know her excuses. I didn't want the details. What mattered was that I had made a decision. Cold one. Clear one. And this time it wasn't hers. It was mine. 2 days after I asked her to leave, Emma came back. Not with apologies. Not with tears or explanations. Just with her keys like nothing had happened. I was in the kitchen making coffee, trying to pretend I still had a routine. The dog barked once, then stopped. I turned and saw her standing in the doorway, holding a grocery bag in one hand, her expression unreadable. "I brought oat milk," she said, as if this were any other morning. I stared at her, not shocked, just blank. "I didn't know you'd be here," she added quickly, placing the bag on the counter. "I thought you'd be at work." I didn't answer, just watched her move around the kitchen like she still belonged in it. She reached into the fridge, paused like she was checking for something, then closed it again. Everything she did was painfully practiced, like muscle memory, like habit. But habit doesn't equal home. Finally, I said, "You don't live here anymore." She didn't flinch. She looked at me, searching my face for a crack. Some tiny hint that I might let her back in. "I know," she said softly. "I'm not trying to start anything. I just needed a few more things." She moved toward the hallway, but not toward the boxes she had packed. She walked into the guest room, the one that used to be a junk room before she needed somewhere else to sleep, just for space. It wasn't locked. I hadn't touched it. Part of me expected she'd come back. Not because she should, but because people like Emma don't like letting go until they've rewritten the ending. She came out 10 minutes later with a small duffel bag and a framed photo. Us on the Oregon coast. A weekend getaway that had felt perfect, until I found out later she had texted Nate the entire drive back. She held the photo for a moment, then looked at me. "I don't expect to stay," she said. "I just don't know where else to go right now." I nodded once, then turned back to the coffee. She slept in the guest room that night, and the next, and then the next. By the fourth day, it stopped feeling like a visit and started feeling like a standoff. We didn't fight. We barely spoke. But her presence filled the apartment like humidity, heavy, invisible, unavoidable. She cleaned the kitchen, watered the plants, reorganized the bookshelf, left little notes on the counter. "Need anything from the store? Made extra soup if you're hungry. Let me know if you want to talk." I never replied. Not once. She started getting up early to walk the dog. Like that would undo months of emotional distance. He tolerated her, but something in his posture had changed. He'd wait for me to say goodbye. He'd curl up on my side of the bed, not hers. Dogs know. She tried acting like she still knew the rhythm of the apartment, but the truth was, it had changed in her absence, and she didn't fit anymore. The drawers she once claimed were already filled. The routines had adapted without her. Emma would make coffee in the mornings, but she never drank it all. She'd sit at the dining table in that worn gray hoodie and scroll on her phone, looking up when I passed, like she wanted me to say something. I didn't. We existed in parallel, not as enemies, but not as anything else either. She tried making conversation once while I was folding laundry. She commented on the weather, how it might finally stop raining next week. I said, maybe. That was the most I gave her. A few days later, she brought home flowers, those orange tulips I used to buy her. She placed them in a vase and left them in the kitchen. I never acknowledged them. They wilted in 3 days. She left her phone on the coffee table once. Face up. Notifications off, but unlocked. A photo of us still on the lock screen. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. Whatever she was trying to show me wasn't for me. It was for her. To feel like she was fixing something. But the damage wasn't in the device. It was in the days I had spent sitting in the dark, wondering why she had stopped choosing me. And now I chose silence. On the 8th day, I came home to find her cooking dinner. Pasta, salad, a bottle of wine on the counter. "I thought maybe we could eat together," she said, not looking up from the cutting board. No pressure, just food. I stared at the table. 2 plates, 2 napkins, the old candle we hadn't lit since spring. "Emma," I said. She looked up. "You don't live here." Her eyes glistened, but she blinked quickly, keeping her composure. "I know. I just thought maybe." "There's no maybe." I wasn't angry. I wasn't cold. I was just honest. "You keep acting like this is a pause, like we're just waiting out a bad moment. But that's not what this is. You stepped out of this relationship. You chose another person. And now you're circling back like you misplaced your keys." Her mouth tightened. Her hands clenched slightly. "It wasn't serious," she whispered. "But it was real," I said. "And it was enough to K*LL what we had." She looked down at the cutting board. I could tell she wanted to argue, to defend, to rationalize. But the words wouldn't come. I walked past her to the guest room. When I came back, I handed her the same bag she had brought in, this time zipped and full. "I need you to go." She took the bag without speaking. For the first time, she didn't ask why. At the door, she turned. "I miss you," she said. I stared at her for a long moment. "You miss the version of me who didn't know." And with that, I closed the door. A week later, I returned to that same cafe. Not by accident, this time I wanted to go. I needed to see it again, to prove to myself I could stand there without falling apart. And there she was, Emma, sitting across from Nate like it was their place now. She didn't flinch when she saw me. She didn't pull her hand away from his. She just looked, resolved. And so was I. I didn't storm out. I didn't say a word. I just turned and left, my head clear. The same silence that swallowed the cafe last time returned. But now, it wasn't filled with shock. It was filled with clarity. That moment wasn't about betrayal anymore. It was about confirmation. Final public closure. New Year's morning, she returned to an empty apartment. My things gone. My presence erased. On the table, I left a photo of us from the first year and a note. Some things don't end with a scream. They end with a choice. She called out my name. I wasn't there. No final conversation. No goodbye. Just stillness. And the weight of her own decisions echoing in the silence.